Welcome back into the workshop for a relatively small, well, it will be small, update to the MFT saga. I was going to say story, but it's more like a saga. I have now, as you can see, the components necessary for cutting or using an MFT approach to cutting things. No, I haven't got any holes in them yet. That's the next thing. The three pieces of the base material, base layer, have been doweled together. It's only got 4 dowels in each, just to give it some registration. And these 1200 pieces, 14 and then another 12, are going to be also with holes in it and all tied together, meaning that the whole double layer is effectively a homogeneous piece because of all the holes that will be tying them together. Now, how far I go with the number of holes is up for debate, because as I've mentioned in other video, that by and large all of the holes aren't necessary. A set of, I'd say, let's just pretend there's, in this sheet here, this section, there will be 3 rows. Well, I could miss the middle row out. This sheet will have 4 rows. Well, I could miss the middle 2 rows out, and ditto over there, that's a 3-rower. I could miss the middle row out. There is no current requirement for all those holes. Ditto for this. The holes, again, could be just 4, just to make sure it's rigid in itself. 2 would make it fairly rigid, 3 better, 4 a wee bit more robust. One of the questions was, and I posed it to myself just as a question, should I really drill all both layers at the same time? And there is an argument for that. I think that if I were to drill the holes in the MFT base layer and then slip these ones underneath, I could then continue the hole through, or set them up so that they're already in position. It wouldn't matter whether this was on that much of an angle, so long as all the holes in it were relatively, or were related to, identically to this one. It wouldn't matter the angle. But the whole point of this approach, in fact, is to be able to relocate any of those top pieces on the holes in the bottom layer, meaning if I needed additional support, I can slide that along. If I were to cut a full sheet, excuse the croaky voice, excuse me, oh, dearie me, another cuppa required, then I could adjust accordingly where I put my pieces, but a 2.4 long sheet wouldn't need a lot of support, but it would need to support perhaps the offcut. Or when I go to use this in the manner that I want to use it, this side is no longer the right-hand side of the track saw, etc., is no longer the offcut. It is actually the item that I'll be wanting, and that's the whole emphasis or focus for the moment, because I've got a job for that, and I'd like to get that bit further along, you could say. So anyway, that 1400 is to allow a bench dog to be put out right at the end here and right out the end there, to allow a 1200 wide sheet to go between the bench dogs, so that I can make use of the longer tracks, the one that's a 1400, but I could use a 1900 long rail, attach it to the bench dogs, and then I'm away laughing. That works in concert with the back fence, because the back fence, or the row of holes that the back fence will plug into, will be at 90 degrees to the rail. So I need to be able to use that back fence for those longer pieces. However, on this side, I need to have a rail along here upon which I can gauge things off of, to be able to act as my stop and for squareness, or parallel more critically, to the rail. talked about that quite a bit. Part of that comes down to, and I'll just come over here, I've been doing things while you haven't been watching. Let's just get the dial calipers, the digital calipers. I made comment that, and I'm going to have to go and have a look at my orders, that I had purchased, I'm just getting that off these things, these bits of dowel, effectively a bench dog, but a dowel that is 20 millimeters in diameter, just ever so slightly under, and it's stainless steel. There's a reason for the comment, and that it is a almost perfect fit. Well, it is to me a perfect fit for the bench dog holes. And let's just go get one. In fact, this one here. Yeah, this is one here. I showed it earlier, but there is a good fit, and then there's a bad fit, and this is perfect. So this is the Goldilocks one. I can locate it there. Oh, silky smooth, no wobble at all, and it is a beautiful fit in the holes. So that means I can tie the top and bottom layers together. So I'll need to get some more of these. Be careful when people are showing how they do what they do, and I'm just coming over into the dark here to get the very things to give you an example. I purchased different ones. I don't know necessarily why I did, but I did. And these ones are chromed or stainless steel. So very similar, if not the same as the ones I've just shown you. I'm going to deliberately keep them separate. So this is either chromed or stainless steel. Not bad. Could consider using them. They might be exactly the same as these. In fact, they do look, and that's why I put chromed or stainless steel. I wasn't sure. In fact, they feel a little bit, oh, that one there is nice. So it might be just the variance between each individual one. So I'm getting to the point. That's loose-ish. Oh, that's nice. So obviously, oh, that's a bit loose, but still good enough for what I'm wanting to do, by the way. However, these are just that little bit different. Perhaps these haven't been coated yet. Maybe they will never will be. Well, they we're never going to be, and they're just raw steel. You see what I mean? Would that be good enough for what I'm doing here? Actually, they probably would be, to be perfectly honest. And in fact, they're all pretty consistently loose. Yeah, so be careful what you see, because if you go to order these, because they are cheaper and they are effectively in their description identical to those other ones here, you might be disappointed. So I'm going to have to look at these ones and see whether I can give them the nod. But this effectively replaces my dowels that I was going to use and I was trying to make for registration of the bars over in the background there, the ones that make the 3-4-5 triangulation setup and give me the positions for all the bench dog holes. I needed to be able to drill a 20mm hole, insert a plug, one of these, and then have a pin register, and it had to be the same size pin as what I was using for registration for those bars. It turns out, if you are lucky, you can get a 8mm, this has got an 8mm thread in it. If you're lucky, you can get an 8mm bolt with the shank that's very, very close to 8mm. Now, again, I've just been showing that in the previous video. I'll zero out my my digital caliper, and I can show that it's 7.83. 7.94, so that is 1/10 of a mil, or 10 microns, fatter. It just happens to be around about, and I'm getting close, the right distance. Oh, look at that. That is actually that is now a interference type fit. That's exactly where I wanted to go. It's paint though, so it's going to not always be the correct thickness. So I would like to get something, now I'm just spinning it down into position, that would be sufficient, because I can always repaint them. That would be sufficient to act as my registration pins. I'll just put them together. Bear with me, please. Winding in. The very thing I was trying to make out of timber. So there's my 20mm plug with an 8mm registration pin in it, i.e. the painted bolt. I can slip it in there, push them down flush, and now, and I can push them down flush, and now I can register my bars. In fact, I'll walk over and get one. I would want to get an engineer to machine up a bolt for me, 8mm thread with a finely finished diameter shaft on it, to replace this painted version. Adequate, but not adequate enough for my my desired end use. So this is you could say this is a trial run, a prototype. The paint, once it's hardened up, would be quite, see, there's absolutely bugger all. It's about the same size as the registration pins that I've bought, but just that little bit more, another coat of paint or two, maybe just a top coat, means now, bear with me again, means now I've got a registration system for my bars, and that it is necessary. So yay, that actually is not too bad. I'm just trying, you can just see that little bit of slop. And guess what, it's actually in the bush, because they're not 100%, because they can't be, otherwise you'd always be running against it would foul. So the movement is pretty much entirely there, but that has given me a lot. It's a big step forward. That is proof of concept. As I say, let it harden up a little bit more, and I've got in metal what I was trying to create with wood. Superior. Yay. Rightio, that's it. Just thought I'd give you that little bit of an update, short one. Good idea? Well, the idea is good, but of course it would really benefit from it not being paint. But to get 10 microns or so, 10 or 12 microns, it's a bit difficult. Spray paint, I just put that in the chuck of my drill, spun the drill up, and gave it 3 blasts of paint, just short blasts of the spray can, and repeated that 3 times. So there's about, you could say, depending on how many rotations, I don't know, but there's many layers of spray paint and on there, building it up until I got the tolerance to where it was much better. Anyway, show you this. Compared to this, still a little bit. It's probably half of that. As I said, a couple of more coats of paint, maybe let this stay out in the sun for a while, and then put a top coat on it, because the top coat probably be a little bit harder. This has got a bit of vinyl or something in it. Anyway, it's whatever it is. Good idea. I like it a lot. Rightio, that's it. Keep it reasonably short. I'll move on. I've got to get some other stuff done. And yes, I'll see you in the next video, hopefully with some holes drilled. Or at least I'll probably make one when I've got the bars set up ready for drilling. Then we'll go from there. Rightio, that's it. See you in the next one now. Bye.